Good morning. Today we're going to do a lesson on conditionals in English, all the conditionals. So we'll start with the easiest conditional. The easiest conditional, which is not very often used but sometimes used, is zero conditional. Zero conditional is for sentences which are always true. So scientific laws are always true. For example, if water reaches 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. This is true in any situation, under any circumstances on this planet, so we use zero conditional. It doesn't have to be for scientific laws. You could be talking about a machine which always acts the same way. So, if you press this button, the machine gives you coffee. Zero conditional. It always follows the formula if and present tense, and then present tense in the second part of the sentence. So zero conditional is the easiest. Let's now look at first conditional. First conditional is used for real possibilities in the future. It's not necessarily always true. This is a very common conditional. It always follows the formula if and present tense, and then will in the second part of the sentence. You can of course use the second part of the sentence in the first part and then put if in the second part. So for example, if I see him, I will tell him. Or, I will tell him if I see him. The most common mistake with first conditional, especially for Russian students, is to say if I will see him, I will tell him, and that is wrong. If you say if I will, you are already wrong. It's not correct to say if I will. The second thing which is worth saying about first conditional is that you don't have to use will in the second part. There are other possibilities. You could use a modal verb like can. For example, if I do my homework, I can come to the lesson. Yeah, you can say that. Instead of will, you use can. You can also use an imperative. For example, imperatives, by the way, are orders. Go, come, wait, tell him. They're all imperatives. So, for example, call a doctor if you feel sick. There is no will in this sentence, but it's still first conditional. We're using an imperative instead of will. Call the doctor. Or wait 5 minutes if you want a lesson. Yeah, wait 5 minutes is an imperative. So we don't use any will in this sentence. It's just the imperative and then the if and present tense. Okay, that's first conditional all finished. Second conditional now, it's like если бы in Russian. It's unfortunately we use second and third like если бы. You just have если бы. And second conditional is used for hypothetical possibilities in the present or future. It's not used for hypothetical possibilities in the past because that is third conditional. Now, hypothetical possibilities in the present and future, I think we use second conditional less often than third conditional because we don't often talk about hypothetical possibilities in the present or future, but you can do. They're crazy kind of ideas like, what would you do if you won £1,000? Yeah, it's not the kind of thing you often say, but we're asking about now in the present. What would you do now if you won £1,000 now? We use a past verb for something which is in the present, and that's very confusing for some students, but it's true. We put the verb in the past and we're talking about the present. So some other examples, what would you do if you were president? We always follow this formula of if and past, and then would or wouldn't in the second part of the sentence, which of course can be the first part of the sentence if we swap the two parts of the sentence around. The most common mistake with second conditional is when people say if I would. If I would is wrong. If she would, he would is wrong. You cannot put would next to the if part of the sentence. Lots of students do this. Unfortunately, it is always wrong. You need to use if and past. if I were president, if I won £1 million, if I had a car. Okay, all of those examples are with past tense. If I had a car, I would drive to work. If I won £1 million, I would buy a yacht. If I were president, I would decrease taxes. Okay, again, we can use modal verbs like could or should instead of the would part of the sentence. Okay, let's now look at third conditional. Now, I think third conditional is very difficult, but it's very common. The good news is that many English people make mistakes when they say these conditionals quickly, and even if you read some classical literature, you will see that they don't form third conditional always correctly. In Sherlock Holmes, for example, I see Conan Doyle often uses an incorrect form of third conditional, and I believe that it was acceptable 100 years ago to use this strange other form, but it's not nowadays. So third conditional is if plus had plus a third form, and then would plus have plus a third form in the other part of the sentence. A good example would be, if I had gone to university, I would have found a better job. Something like this. We're talking about a hypothetical possibility in your past. You didn't go to university, so you didn't find the better job. But we're talking about how your life would have been different if you had behaved in a different way, or if you had made different choices. Very often we want to talk about our life and explain how things could have been different. So anytime you're referring to something that happened in the past, maybe in your life, maybe historically, you can say, if Russia had not won the Second World War, things would have been very different. Of course, you can use this conditional about things which happened before you were alive. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be about your life, but you're still explaining how life would have been different, and you're using real moments in the past, but speaking about how those real moments could have been different. That's when we use this third conditional. The most common mistake is people again trying to say if and would. They say, if I would have gone to university, my life would have been different. That's wrong. If I had gone to university, my life would have been different. But this is actually the same form which I see in the old Sherlock Holmes novels, but it's not correct nowadays. Please don't use it. Please try and use the correct form, and your English will sound much better. Now again, with third conditional, we can use other modal forms instead of would have been. We can use could have been, we can use should have been, and it's still third conditional. It's still a correct third conditional. Okay? Now, something I should say about conditionals, which makes them more complicated before I talk about mixed conditionals. When I say if and present, and then will in the second part, you can use present simple or present continuous. When I say if plus past and would in the second part, second conditional, you can use past simple or past continuous. When I say if and had and the third form, past perfect, and would have and the third form in the second part of the sentence, you can actually use past perfect continuous, not just past perfect simple. So if I had been wearing mountain boots, I wouldn't have fallen. We're using past perfect continuous there instead of past perfect simple. So other tenses are possible in the first part of the sentence. It's worth remembering that. Now let's look at mixed conditionals. There are a few different types of mixed conditionals, but there's only one which you really must learn if you want to even perfect the more difficult aspects of English grammar. And that is the mixed conditional where we talk about a hypothetical situation in the past and we connect it to a present eventuality. For example, if I hadn't stolen the money, that's in the past, I wouldn't be in prison now. That's in the present, now. And so we mix the conditional because we're mixing our hypothetical situation in the past with a hypothetical situation in the present. And so we mix third and second conditional. We use the start of third conditional, if I had, and third form. And then we use the ending of second conditional, just would plus infinitive. I wouldn't be in prison now. But you can say, if I hadn't stolen the money, I wouldn't have gone to prison, because wouldn't have gone is in the past, and so we use a straight third conditional. But if you if you use that past hypothetical situation, you can tie it to a present hypothetical situation, and then you have the mixed conditional. I hope that that is clear. I know that it's a lot of information to take in, but do your best, and I think with a lot of practice of just speaking, especially the third conditional, correctly, just have some practice, speak it correctly a few times, and it becomes easier and easier to speak it correctly every time. Good luck and enjoy learning English.